Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Matt Gagel. I'm the Director of Programs here at Montgomery History. And just going to go over a few quick announcements before we get to today's presentation. First of all, again, I want to thank everyone who's joined us. And I also want to give a special thank you to those who've made financial contributions to Montgomery History. We are able to continue to offer free programs like this because of your generous support. If you'd like to make a donation to support Montgomery History, you can visit our website at montgomeryhistory.org and click on the Donate Now button, and that'll guide you through the process. As you can see there on the page, we are very deep in the process of opening up the new Montgomery County History Center we're hoping for a fall opening. We are in the middle of the construction right now. Lots going on over there. It's going to look fantastic. We're very excited about that. So stay tuned for more updates and information on that. And we'll also be holding a grand opening event once we're ready to welcome people in there. There will be lots of exhibits and events that will take place there. Should be a very exciting place to hang out and spend time. So keep an eye out for information on that. Next week, we're going to have a rewind, the Better Angels, about some women who were connected to the Civil War, the American Civil War. That'll be available on our website at montgomeryhistory.org/history conversations. We do have we will post a recording of this talk on that same page on next Monday. I'm going to try and get it up a little bit earlier as soon as I can this week, but I do like to give myself a little bit of time in case I need to make any edits, but we'll keep an eye out for that. Should be on our website very soon. Another event that I would like to share about and will be on our website very shortly. I'm waiting for a little bit more information, but next Wednesday, June 10th, at the Poolsville Memorial Methodist Church on Elgin Road, Historic Medley District is hosting a presentation with author and historian David O. Stewart, who will be talking about the founding of Montgomery County, as well as connections to the Revolutionary War with the founders of Montgomery County and some of the work that they've done. That will be again next Wednesday at 7 p.m. at the Poolsville Memorial Methodist Church on Elgin Road. Admission is free. The Historic Medley District is asking for registration. I am waiting for them to send me the registration link, but that will be on our website hopefully within the next 24 hours. And then we will have that in our e-news next week as well. So keep an eye out for that. I hope you will attend that. Just as a tiny little teaser, David Stewart will be presenting at the Montgomery County History Conference this fall. So you can get a teaser as to some of his work on a different topic, not this specific topic, but later this year in November at the Montgomery County History Conference. So I think that's all. I know you didn't come here to hear me talk, so I will stop talking here. And let me go ahead and stop my screen share, and we'll see if we can get Neil on, and we'll get her presentation going. So Neil is going to give the presentation. Holly is helping out with running the slides, and as always, I'll be in the background to help if anything goes wrong. Oh, last thing, as Holly is getting her presentation started here. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A button. Those will go to me, and then at the end of the presentation, we'll get to as many of those as we can. We may not be able to get to all of them, but we'll try and get to as many relevant questions as possible. So, okay, I am done talking. Neil, you are good to go. I'm going to go ahead and turn let's make sure we can get, looks like Holly's having some issues here. Give us just a moment. Holly, you are muted, by the way, so we can't hear you if you are talking to us.
Yeah,
It's
Holly, if you hit
just a
slideshow up at the top,
yeah.
sort of right.
Hmm. Holly, if you hit that
I
slideshow from
it
the
says
top right.
it says my screen sharing is paused.
Okay, so what I would do is just here. Let me do this. I'm going to stop your screen share just a second, and we'll go ahead and try and do that. Go ahead and start your screen share over again.
Okay.
Oh,
Whoops. We're
that's
getting
okay. We'll
there.
get there. As always, things went perfectly fine as when we were
Is
practicing
that
ahead of
is
time.
it good now?
It is not showing at the moment.
Oh, that's so weird. Okay. Huh. Okay. Well, we'll do it like this. You are screen sharing. Okay,
Yep.
great. What you want to see is all that junk.
Uh,
Now is it
and
working?
there we go. It's
Okay,
working perfectly. All right.
great.
Very nice. Thank you. Oh, it is so great to be here. I feel like one of the teachers during COVID that had all these students out there but couldn't see anybody. So I'm talking to a little camera on my computer. But thank you for coming. Today, I've been asked to talk about the research that we've been doing locating enslavers and enslaved during the Civil War and locating historic Black communities in the county. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll go over the interactive map that we've created here at MoCoLMP and show how it can be used. Many of us live in Montgomery County unaware of its in deep history of slavery or of the formerly enslaved who overcame the early challenges of freedom and then Jim Crow in this part of the South, because the county was, for all intents and purposes, the South. Many of us don't realize that we regularly pass the historic homes of former enslavers, the remnants of once thriving Black communities, or the ghosts of lost historic Black communities, such as the ones on River Road in Bethesda. If you drive up River Road, you'll be traveling a road that was originally an indigenous trade route. By the 1700s, it was used to transport tobacco and other agricultural goods down county and into DC for sale. If you start at the DC line on Western Avenue, you'll drive through land that by the Civil War was owned by white families named Goldsboro, Councilman, Loughborough, Dunlop, and Posey. After 3 minutes, you'll pass the Crescent Trail, which between 1910 and 1985 was a train track for the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, Georgetown branch. And at about where the McDonald's and American plant are on your left side and Whole Foods is on your right side, you will pass the sites of former Black communities. Graysville, whose families had moved there from Elm Street in the middle of Bethesda, Clipper Lane, home of the Clipper family, Dorsey Lane, home of the Dorsey family, and River Road, also known as Crow Hill. Each of these was a small Black kinship community on what until 1915 was a dirt road. The Black community here began in 1869, founded by people formerly enslaved by the Loughborough family, whose home still stands just out of sight on Little Falls Road. 2 acres belonged to blacksmith Nelson Wood, who bought it from the Councilman family who had enslaved his wife. There is a Wood family cemetery off Little Falls and River Road. These communities weren't static, of course. Families grew and new homes were built on the land to support them. People moved in and out of the community for marriage or jobs. The 1880 census notes 24 households and 102 residents living here. Martin Elizabeth Turner, Victoria and Moses Smothers, and Mary and James Noland were some of the residents. In 1925, their children started attending the beautiful new River Road Colored School, built with funds raised by the community and matched by the Rosenwald Foundation. Researcher Paige Whitley tells us that the families went to church together at the Rock Creek Baptist Church down in Tenleytown, and then to the Macedonia Baptist Church on River Road. The church still stands on Clipper Lane, the last visible remnant of these communities. The development pressure that had pushed the the Graysville family and the church out of the center of Bethesda over to River Road eventually pushed the families out of this River Road community. By the 1960s, there were only 2 of the original Black families left, and then they were pressured by developers to sell. Today, the area is paved over, with various businesses and a large apartment building looming over it all. But in the years I lived down the road in DC, I never knew this. For over 25 years living in Montgomery County, I never knew that these communities had been there and that some still existed. If you continue past Clipper and Dorset Lanes near Whole Foods and drive up River Road from Bethesda into Potomac, you'll pass other lost communities of Black families who had worked on the C&O Canal for local gold mines. Yes, gold mines. They didn't do very well, but they were there. And stone quarries. All are now gone. Luckily for us, River Road was paved up to Potomac in the 1930s. As we continue up the road along the river, you can quickly leave the commercial area and enter wealthy communities in Bethesda and then Potomac. The lots and the homes increase in size. After a while, the drive is mostly through wooded areas on land that during the Civil War would have been mostly open farmland with occasional woodlots. Neighbors could see each other. Now, the C&O National Historic Park is on your left. Redbud trees bloom in the spring, and oak, maple, and sycamore give welcome refuge to wild birds and animals in the summer months. 13 miles after leaving the DC line, you drive past the historic community of Tobytown, built near the Potomac River. The county paved the dirt road up to this point in the 1950s. Visitors fish on the river there now, or walk the canal path, not realizing that they are near an historic community created by formerly enslaved Black farm workers. The Black community of Travilla was across the road and down the street, where both communities went to church. By the 1880 census, some of the residents of Tobytown were listed as laborers, which usually meant day work rather than permanent jobs. One was a shoemaker, some were workers maintaining the C&O Canal, and 2 were listed as farmers, which meant they owned their own farmland. One of the early founders, William Davis, owned 93 acres by 1900. By the 1940s, the suburbs were pushing their way up into the county, and farm work was harder to get. Residents had few transportation options. It was a poor community that got by as other Black communities did, through hard work, resilience, and by growing much of their own food. Elders there now remember vegetable gardens, orchards, hog pens, and smoke houses that fed the community. Tobytown survived, mostly, the Jonestown flood of 1889 and the Great Potomac flood of 1936, among others. The community we see now is the result of urban renewal in the late 1960s and early 1970s, when the county tore down its remaining original homes. The county finally paved the roads and installed sewer and electric lines and built townhomes to replace the old rundown homes that struggling families had been living in. But it also took ownership of the land from the families and required them to pay mortgages to regain title to their new homes. It took 10 years for the first descendant to regain title to his home. The county went on to use the same urban renewal practices in the communities of Linden-Littonsville and Silver Spring, Emery Grove and Stewarttown in Gaithersburg, and Scotland in Potomac. As you drive further, you'll pass the Seneca community and Seneca sandstone quarry on Riley's
Neil,
Lock.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't think the slideshow is advancing properly.
No, we're on 3. We should be on 3 now. There you go. There's Sherlyn. Let me see. Yeah, we're about to go to 3. So the community didn't fare as well during the floods that occurred, and they eventually moved their church up to nearby Berrysville Road. But the ruins of the old mill still exist, and the old community cemetery is beautifully maintained. Moving further into and through the Poolsville area, you'll find more historic communities. Groups of MoCoLMP members took tours of Sugarland, shown here, found in 1870, and Martinsburg up the road in Dickerson, founded in 1866. Sugar Land has a beautiful church, which we saw in the opening photo, and a well-researched cemetery. They're also doing archaeological work on part of the land to learn more about their history. Martinsburg is the only historic Black church in Maryland to still have its three pillars: church, school, and community building. It's been hard to keep them up, but they're doing a wonderful job. If you drive around Poolesville, you'll be able to drive through the old communities of Jerusalem, founded in 1872, and Jonesville, founded in 1866 by enslaved people emancipated from Aix-la-Chapelle next door. Their old churches, Jerusalem Baptist and Elijah Methodist, still stand. Then, after you drive up River Road, if you're curious and want to learn more, you can drive to the eastern side of the county and explore the Sandy Springs Slave Museum. It's the only museum in the county dedicated to teaching the history of slavery and Jim Crow. In the late 18th and early 19th century, Quakers were required by the Society of Friends to release their enslaved by 1820 or be disowned by the meeting. Black families created several free communities in the Sandy Spring area that still exist today. In 2022, I was driving through Poolesville in the northwestern part of the county when I saw a large group of people digging in the dirt in the middle of town. I was confused and later found out that I'd stumbled across the soil collection ceremony for the 1880 lynching of a Black man, Mr. George W. Peck. It turned out that MoCoLMP, the Montgomery County Lynching Memorial Project, had organized the soil collection. In 2023, I started volunteering for MoCoLMP and started learning about historic Black communities. After the soil collection ceremony, MoCoLMP volunteers kept working, and on a beautiful fall day in 2023, we unveiled a new historic marker in Poolesville, Maryland, for Mr. Peck in the company of almost 250 supporters. In places of honor in the front rows sat descendants of local Black communities who would have been most affected by this act of terror. Communities of Jerusalem, Martinsburg, Sugar Land, and the more distant communities of Emery Grove, Pleasant View, and Sandy Spring. Having completed our original mission of soil collection and lynching memorial, our intention was to continue to educate and engage communities about our history and the legacy of slavery, racial violence, racial terror lynching, and systemic racism by promoting truth, remembrance, reconciliation, and reckoning in Montgomery County. At our annual meeting in the spring of 2024, our members told us that they wanted to learn more about our historic Black communities. We had so many questions. How many enslaved were there in the county at the start of Civil War? How many enslavers? How many historic Black communities have there been in the county? How are the sites of enslavement and the Black communities connected? How do we show and tell these stories? So how did we do the research? We reached out to Sarah Headland at Montgomery History, who had worked closely with MoCoLMP on the Lynching Memorial Marker Project, and who knows all about how to research anything Montgomery County. She would help get us started. And we started recruiting volunteers. We began in May of 2024 with 3 research groups: a group researching the names of the enslaved, a group researching the names of enslavers, or what we came to call the sites of enslavement, since people were enslaved in homes, on plantations, or in commercial establishments, and a group researching historic Black communities. Our volunteer researchers have been white and Black, some still working for pay and some retired, born in Maryland, born in other states. Over the past 2.5 years, almost 30 people have been involved in researching and publishing what we've learned, along with many descendants of the communities that we've been learning about. We quickly learned how widespread slavery was in Montgomery County and how the county's economy had depended on chattel slavery to fuel its growth since it was legalized in the state in 1664. This picture was taken at the Maryland State Archives. We hadn't realized that before emancipation in the county, there were so many historic Black communities here. And we didn't know yet how the growth of the county influenced the creation of new Black communities over the next 140 years, and how vital the work of Black community members were to the development of the county. We were originally going to focus on Reconstruction, usually defined as from 1865 to 1877. Early on, we realized that it was important to include the independent, segregated Black communities that began well before the Civil War. In Montgomery County, the earliest communities were founded beginning in the late 1700s, often, but not always, by Black families manumitted by local Quakers. There are a number of communities in Sandy Spring, as well as communities such as Big Woods in Dickerson, founded by a manumitted Black man named James Spencer in 1813. Mr. Spencer went on to become one of the county's most successful Black farmers well before the Civil War. We have an article on Big Woods posted on our website. We also decided to treat each community, no matter how small, as a piece of individual research. Many small communities were kinship family groups that came together with other kinship groups at a shared church, school, and sometimes a community center. For example, Whiteground, shown here, Turnertown and Blocktown and Boyd's are individual kinship groups, but all met together on Sundays at St. Mark's United Methodist Church on Whiteground Road. And their children all went to the boys' Negro school, pictured here top right, near the church. Even the Blocktown families, who had to walk almost 2 miles to get to church and school. Even if it was a hot summer day, even if they had to struggle through snowdrifts that had covered deep potholes on ungraded roads. But if they named themselves and considered themselves distinct, we are trying to tell the story of that community. And for those who are interested, the Boyd's Negro School is open for visitors on the third Sunday of each month between April and November. Once we decided to research all the communities between 1800 and 1940, we decided to assign researchers to different counties. The Martinet map from 1865, which we found through the Montgomery History list of maps, was helpful here. The Martinet map is a snapshot in time. We see the names of residents all over the county, mostly white, because spots on the map were paid for by the subscriber, but also some names of Black landowners and Black schools, examples circled here in red. We also see the names of mills and some other businesses. Researchers could take the names from the 1867 slave census and figure out a general location for their home or business from the map. The Legacy of Slavery site was also sometimes helpful here. We learned that in Montgomery County, enslavers and enslaved were on farms, in homes, in mines, and in quarries. Seneca Sandstone up near Poolsville is a well-known quarry. They were in foundries, in shops and taverns, in flour, saw, textile, and woolen mills. There were around 40 mills in our county in the late 1800s, including ones whose names we still see today: Veers Mill, Muncaster Mill, Clopper Mill, and Bell's Mill. At some point, they all probably had enslaved workers. In the 1860 federal census, there were 11,322 white adults and children living in our county. According to Google, families averaged about 5 to 6 persons, which seems low. But if we use this number as an average, there were maybe 1,887 white families. Of this total of 1,900 families, 760 were listed as enslavers in the 1860 slave census, so about 40% of the white households in the county. There's probably someone out there who has better numbers, but this is an initial estimate. Please let me know if you have more detailed research. MoCoLMP researchers learned that of the over 87,000 enslaved people in Maryland at the start of the Civil War, over 5,400 lived in Montgomery County. This was down from almost 7,600 early in the 1800s, before tobacco farming destroyed the soil and farmers turned to growing wheat and corn, and some transitioned to dairy farming. So far, our teams have identified over 830 enslavers during the war. The number is high because it includes both enslavers who died and those who inherited between 1860 and 1865. Of those enslavers, almost 30% were women. Farms here were smaller, on average, than those in states farther south. The average farm size was 138 acres, but there was also small truck farms who sold produce out of trucks on just a few acres. Of the total enslavers, most, about 80%, enslaved fewer than 10 persons. Women tended to enslave 5 or fewer. Finding out where the enslavers lived was a bigger challenge. The larger enslavers may have left behind beautiful homes that have been kept up to this day, and which may have been included in books or the historic registries of homes. Smaller enslavers, though, often had less significant homes and lived on streets that in the mid-19th century didn't have street names or numbered addresses. So we've had to make educated guesses where we could, making our way through a variety of resources. People researching slavery in Maryland, and especially in Montgomery County, are very lucky. We have an embarrassment of riches here to use for our research. Two of the most helpful have been Montgomery History and the Maryland State Archives. Both have online and in-person resources and staff that are available for anyone doing research. The Maryland State Archives have a project called The Legacy of Slavery, which you can find online. There are searchable databases on enslavers and enslaved for information gleaned from the slave censuses that were done every decade, from lists of manumissions, certificates of freedom, slave schedules, and slave statistics, among others. Hannah Lane from the Legacy of Slavery staff was kind enough to spend time on Zoom training us in research methods. Other staff at the archives also helped us when two of us went up to Annapolis to do research for information we weren't finding online. There are also historical societies in Bethesda, Germantown, Rockville, Kensington, Damascus, etc. Many of them have begun to include the histories of local Black communities to their research and resources, and some of it's online. Montgomery History had a copy of the 1867 slave census or statistics, which is a list of enslavers and the names, ages, and genders of the enslaved to which they claimed ownership as of 1864, when they lost ownership. The enslavers had hoped to be reimbursed for lost property. They never were reimbursed. The statistics had been transcribed to a typed edition back in the 1970s. We transcribed the typed version onto a Google spreadsheet, which is now publicly available. With the spreadsheet, we're able to do searches by name, sort by gender, family names, etc. The spreadsheet includes 3,345 names of the enslaved, claimed by former enslavers who had sworn loyalty to the Union. Now, I should note that one of the reasons this was such a huge resource is that the slave censuses before that didn't name the enslaved. It was just whether they were Black or mulatto, their ages, their genders, and sometimes some other information, but it's hard to find names. Not every enslaver requested reimbursement, and so not all were listed, and enslavers loyal to the Confederacy were not included. To this list of enslavers from the 1867 slave statistics, we added enslavers we found using other sources. And so this is the part of the spreadsheet that we were adding information to. The 1865 Martinet map, which we saw earlier, included the names of some of the Black homeowners, Black schools, and Black churches that existed then. And we used the 1879 Hopkins map and other early 20th century maps found on the Montgomery History and Library of Congress websites. We haven't been able to find all the locations of the enslavers yet, but we'll continue to work on it. So far, we have 421 SOEs, sites of enslavement, located on the map. So at this point, we had teams, work assigned, spreadsheets, sources, background information, and hundreds of enslavers, enslaved, and historic Black communities identified. How are we going to turn all this information into a usable map? We tried various options and then decided to use a Google My Map, which lets you plot your own sites on a map that can be used for information and driving instructions. There are two ways to access the map. You can go and find our landing page on our website, shown here on the upper right, Tracing Freedom, which also gives you drop downs on how to use the map if you are interested in instructions, and gives information on the area pages that we've published so far. So if you click on Tracing Freedom, you'll be taken to the main landing page for the project. You'll find the description of the map itself, the button with a link to the information on how to use the map, and 12 area pages. These area pages give you an idea of where in the county you can find the communities. The ones with checks are the ones that have the information posted so far. The rest will be released as soon as possible. Potomac and Rockville are next. They're taking a little bit of a time, partly because Potomac has so many interesting communities with just a ton of information on them. The information on Scotland is going to be posted in our next newsletter. Emery Grove, we are working on. Tobytown, we're working on. Tobytown's just about done. We'll be posting those as soon as we can. The research process takes a while because we do online research, interview descendants, drive around the county to learn about it and take photos, and because we work with the descendants of historic communities to proofread the articles, ask their guidance on where to add or delete information, and sometimes we're offered photos by them that we can include. From the map, you can go back to the landing page or area pages. This gives a little bit of a sample of what the map looks like. On the map landing page, you have two choices, which I'm pointing out partly because I didn't see them for a while. On the small box on the left-hand side where the arrow is leading to, it will take you to a full screen map, or you can click on the small box. That's the one that brings this little pop-up on the left with information on it, or the one on the right leads you to the full screen map. Once you're looking at the map, you might want to only click on one of the categories at a time. We have sites of enslavement, historic Black communities, sites of lynching, the three lynching sites, and we just have 3 of the places where enslaved were bought and sold, partly because they were bought and sold everywhere, but those were more public places rather than the farms where they were bought and sold all the time. Okay. You may have heard of the Scotland community, which is located in Potomac over near Montgomery Mall. It's the largest Black community in the county, at one time covering 500 acres. If you click on the little gray down arrow below historic Black communities, it will show you a list of other communities we have found locations for. Some of the locations are educated guesses. If there are descendants who know exactly where these communities are or were, please let us know. Then, to look at the examples, if you go down the list of community names and click on Scotland, the map will take you to where it's located and show on the map the blue house icon with a white circle around it. To the left of the map, will be a pop-up with some basic information on that community. To find out more about that community and the area that it's located in, scroll down the pop-up and click on the Learn More About These Communities link. It will take you to the area page we saw on the Tracing Freedom landing page. Note that we will continue to update all this information as we do more research. Remember that on some of the area pages that are already live, but others are not. A bunch will be released in the coming months and will be announced in the MoCoLMP newsletter. The map will show you what has been updated at the top where it says published on and the date. As they are completed, each area page will be added on the website to the drop-down menu, the drop-down in the menu, and a check will be added to its area page box on the landing page. Okay. The enslavers can be found in the same way. Click on the gray arrow below one of the sites of enslavement, and the list of the enslavers we have located will show up. If you click on one of them, the map will center that enslaver location, like it did in the example here, and show a faint white circle, which I wish was bigger. It's a little bit hard to see, around the red corn cob that represents their information. If we know the names of their enslaved, the names will be included in the pop-up on the left. Our research doesn't focus on the enslavers, so these links don't go to separate pages on the website. We will be adding information to the pop-up maps as we continue our research. This is an ongoing project. Okay, cool things about the Google Map. If on a laptop you go to the map, you can click on a community or site of enslavement and then click on the arrow sign at the top right of the pop-up page. Here it was in the red bar to the right of Beale Grafton, and get directions on how to get there. On your phone, you can also use Google Maps and find driving instructions there. You have to use the Google Maps app, and you have to be signed in so it knows where your location is. See the instructions button on the landing page for how to do this. Remember that a number of these communities don't exist anymore because of urban development, because community members moved out to get married or to find other work opportunities, and or because the county taxes were too high, or because they died and descendants already lived elsewhere. The Historic Black Community page will note if we know that there are buildings still standing and if we know that there's an active community still living there. So what has been inspiring? People want to learn. We saw how important it was to both Black and white communities to learn more about Black history in the county. We immediately found so many interesting pieces of research authored by individuals and groups in the county and sites such as Legacy of Enslavery through the Maryland State Archives. We were inspired to learn more. We were surprised to learn that there were a number of historic Black communities that were founded up to 230 years ago by enslaved Blacks manumitted by Quakers or by individual slaveholders. We've been inspired by the ways the historic communities took care of each other and feel that we can learn from them. What are other takeaways? We were surprised to learn how prevalent slavery was in Maryland and Montgomery County, and that this was a strongly Confederate-leaning area. Everywhere you go in this county was touched by slavery. We were disappointed to learn that the state resisted the end of slavery so that only the continued presence of voting Union soldiers released the enslaved in Maryland almost 2 years after Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. The state resisted the end of slavery by moving into an era of Jim Crow with legal, financial, cultural, political, and social segregation. The state enforced segregation of everything from water fountains to pools and beaches, movie theaters, and neighborhoods, to whether or not a person can get a mortgage or other loan. and Montgomery County's white population looked on as 3 men were lynched by mobs in the late 1800s without benefit of the due process of law. Maryland was a Southern state through and through, and it took until the 1960s, 100 years after the Civil War, when the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and the Fair Housing Act were signed into law to legally end segregation here. But between 1800 and the 1940s, over 144 Black communities were founded in Montgomery County. Communities that could be as small as 3 related families on an acre or as large as 45 families living on 500 acres, working together to build new homes, celebrate their faith at church, taking care of each other's children, finding ways to provide insurance for health crises and burials, building schools so that their children could learn how to read and write, and providing safety and mutual support when the outside world was often a dangerous place to be. Each of us lives on or near a former site of enslavement, SOE, whether it was a farm that was turned into a suburban development, the ruins of a mill that ground flour to feed the local people, or the ghost of an old tavern where enslaved people were bought and sold. To make this hidden history of Montgomery County visible, we show that everyday places, apple orchards, wedding venues, and shopping centers, sit on land once worked by enslaved people. The ground beneath Homestead Farms, Aix-la-Chapelle Farm, and Westfield Montgomery Mall hold stories most of us pass without knowing. But just beyond these familiar spaces are historic Black communities, places built by those who endured slavery and shaped what came after. Their stories are still here, woven into the landscape. You may have met descendants whose families have lived here for hundreds of years. You can visit Sugarland in Martinsburg or join one of the community activities planned by Prathertown. To learn more, you can join the Juneteenth celebrations at the Scotland community in Kensington, in Germantown, and elsewhere. You can visit the Sandy Springs Slave Museum and the Josiah Henson Museum and Park in Bethesda. You can do research at Montgomery History in Peerless Rockville and at the Maryland State Archives. MoCoLMP's new growing interactive map hints at the connections between SOEs and our historic Black communities, and then tells the stories of these resilient communities. You can explore the map and the Tracing Freedom website, and then go to the resources we used that are listed at the bottom of the pages and learn more. You can subscribe to the MoCoLMP newsletter and read about the historic Black communities as we publish new articles. Thank you for this opportunity. I'd love to answer any questions.
Okay. Excuse me. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Neil. We do have a bunch of questions here, so I just turned my camera on. I did see someone asked, I'm going to do it all out of order, but someone asked how to find the map. So I did drop the link in the Q&A, and I believe it was up there on Holly's last page, but just go to the MoCo Lynching Memorial Project website, which is MoCoLMP.org. And then one of the tabs at the top is Tracing Freedom. So it's pretty easy to find. Again, the link is there in the Q&A for people to see. Okay, so Leslie Whitley is here. She has done some research in the past with a bunch of different communities. She says she wants to point out the photo of adults in front of the River Road School is the White Parent Teachers Association viewing the school in 1954. And that particular school was one of 4 segregated schools, which was closed after Brown v. Board of Education. So she's got some other comments here about different churches that were attended. So so someone asked, how did the Emery Grove United Methodist Church survive urban renewal?
That is a good question, and that's actually the next community that I'm going to be interviewing. So I'll add that, definitely add that question to the interview, because from what I understand, there's almost nothing else left. So, they're still a very active church.
Okay. Jason asks, how do we get information on volunteering?
Ah, just email MoCoLMP. There should be an email contact um, little thing right on the website if you go to it, and we would love to have you volunteer.
Jason, I did just drop a link to their contact page into the chat, so you can click on that and get right there. Let me get back to the right page here.
And we'll be at some of the Juneteenth, the Scotland Juneteenth and the Kensington Juneteenth. If you want to come up and say hi, and we can sign you up too there.
Okay. Selena Singleton says, I'm a member of the Emery Grove Urban Renewal Task Force. Do you have any interviews of former Emery Grove residents that are accessible to the public?
I did an interview with Howard Copeland a while ago, and it's so far is by far our most popular interview. He is a wonderful man and apparently knew everybody in the world. He was the first Black man to drive a truck doing deliveries for Lay's, and he was just wonderful. So yes, go to our YouTube page, and you'll find it there. And if you have a hard time finding it, just email us and we'll send you a link.
And we'll also drop that into
Yeah, we have
Q&A as well.
We have several oral history interviews, and we'll be coming out with more.
Oh yeah, there he is. So I dropped the link again to the MoCo Lynching Memorial Project's YouTube in the chat and or excuse me in the Q&A, and it looks like his that oral history you mentioned is the first one that shows up under For You. So it's just a history of a people, Emery Grove, the Army, and Frito-Lay. So all right, trying to help out as I can here. So let's see. Jennifer asks, are all the sites of Rosenwald schools or other segregated school facilities shown on the map?
They aren't. We didn't put the churches and schools on. We just put the communities, but there are maps out there. Ralph Bugles had a map up. Is that still up on Montgomery History? I think that was where that one was.
It is. I don't know if it's I believe it's still accessible if you search for if you go to our website and search I don't know that it yes, okay, all right, yeah. So if you go to our website, the Montgomery History website, and search Black schools, it will bring up something that's a page titled African American History, Community, and Schools. And that there is a bunch of stuff there. Ralph's, how many pages is this? There's like a 31-page document that he put together of the different communities. And then there is also a map of the different schools, another 50-page document. So I would recommend visiting our website and the Montgomery History website and searching Black schools or African American history, community, and schools, and that will get you to that information.
And there's also a really interesting book written by Nina Hanneman Clark that's at the library. That is just a terrific resource. And she was part of the family of Black educators who just made a huge difference in Montgomery County. So that's a really interesting book. I think she also wrote one on churches.
I believe I'm going to probably get myself in trouble for saying this. I believe we actually have do we have an oral history recording? Maybe we don't. Okay, sorry. I thought we might have had an oral history recording with her, but we do not.
Yeah, there's some interesting transcriptions of oral history recordings of historic Black descendants on the Montgomery History website too, which are really interesting to read. And some of these communities, like if you go to the Scotland website, you can go to an Emery Grove website, you can go to Prathertown has one. So some of the ones that are still, active and have people out there who are comfortable doing this sort of thing have some websites and information out there that where you can learn more and figure out what it is, what they're doing and what you might be able to when you might be able to go visit.
Okay. Sarah Hedlund. Ah, yes, I was correct. Sarah Hedlund is also in the. She's watching as well, and being the amazing person that she is, she's dropping some links into the chat. And I was correct. There is a Nina Clark oral history. So for once, my memory worked. But I'll put that in the chat. Someone on the chat mentions that she was Nina Clark was her first grade teacher, so
Oh,
it's not that long ago. There's a lot of questions here. I'm going to try and get to. Let's see here. Brian Crane, who of course works for Parks, mentions that they have some new information about Blue Mash / Marsh and Jackson City
oh,
community. So Brian, I think the best way probably would be to connect with the Lynching Memorial Project and get that connected. Um, Yolanda asks, do the historic Black communities include communities founded by freed Blacks, or are they just communities founded by the enslaved? And I believe what she's asking is it communities that were formed prior to the 14th Amendment. I'm assuming is what she's. I'm not
uh,
quite sure.
it was all of the Black communities that we could find. We're actually right now looking researching all the founders. So the ones that we already know information on um, were all founded by manumitted or emancipated enslaved people. Some of the ones, especially there may be some of them in there that were founded by free men, people but not that I know of yet.
Okay. Yolanda also mentions that she has Black ancestors who are associated with Sandy Spring and
Mm.
Cracklin. Do you have information about Cracklin? Was it a part of Sandy Spring?
If you look at the Martinet map, that will show you where everything was. And Cracklin was one of these districts that we had never heard of before on the old map. And I think was Sandy Spring. I can never remember whether Sandy Spring was in Barry or in Cracklin. But the Martinet map will tell you, and that's probably one of the Sandy Spring is probably one of the areas that I'll do last because there's so much information on it and so many um, communities that still exist. So it's going to take a while to get through the research and the working with descendants to try to make sure that we get the stories right. But yeah, if you contact Sandy Springs Slave Museum, they'll be able to tell you all kinds of stuff. You may already be in contact with them.
All right. Let's see here. Someone says, I didn't realize that so many street names are named after slaveholders. Any chance they could be changed?
Some of them have been changed. Well, I've heard of several streets that names have been changed, but there's also the high schools. Like here in Poolesville, there's been discussion on Poolesville High School since the Pools were slaveholders. Whether it would be possible to change it. So far, that hasn't happened, but it seems to me there are a couple of schools where they have changed the names, but that's been a big issue lately.
Okay. Someone asks, where should we uh, report sites not yet on the map?
Ooh, that'd be wonderful. Yeah, just email us at MoCoLMP and the email will be forwarded to me.
Okay.
Yeah, we would love to know.
One point of reference, if I can find the article, and Sarah, again, is being very helpful. She's sending me information on the back end while we're at their sheets. Look at that. Ralph recently did a pretty extensive, Ralph Buglis recently did a pretty extensive research report on the on school names for enslavers. I'm going to drop that into the chat as well. So that should pop up.
Yeah, I should note
And
that Ralph has been a huge help through all of this. I emailed him back and forth. Does this look right? Does this look right? And
Ralph
yeah,
is such a great guy.
yeah.
He's
So there's, the people like Sarah and Ralph who've already done so much research have been very helpful.
Julianne Mangin, who also has done a lot of research for Montgomery history and is involved in a lot, says Sandy Spring was in Barry, and she says, I believe Cracklin was associated with Laytonsville. Let's see here. Again, there's a lot of questions. I'm trying to get to as many as I can here. Let's see here. Says, I didn't see any mention of Lincoln Park in Rockville. I'm pretty sure Lincoln Park was bigger than Scotland. Can you comment on that?
I haven't done Lincoln Park yet doing research. I mean, they have yes, they are also a very active community and have a lot of uh, people doing just terrific historic research out there. So I'm looking forward to doing it, but I haven't been able to do that yet.
So it's on the list.
It is definitely on the list.
Okay. Someone asks, was the county's historic cemetery inventory useful for the research at this stage, or do you expect that the mapping project will assist refinement of the cemetery inventory for badly underrepresented African American burial grounds?
Um, it has been useful, and it will be useful too as we're looking at the founding families, and trying to figure out, who helped found each of these different communities. Um, I don't, we have run into, we've run into small family graveyards and things that may not be listed, and ones that people think that there might be graveyards there, but it can be expensive to make sure that they were there, because they have to do it's a big process to make sure that land that may have had graveyards there, and they may not be really visible anymore. It can be a big process. So it's something that's definitely ongoing and worth looking into. It's not the focus of what we're doing. We're dealing more with the communities than the cemeteries, but as we find cemeteries, I am trying to like mention them in the research that in the articles that we're writing, so that people know that they might be out there.
Okay. Um, do you have any information about the Brownstown area? I have family ties to that location.
That's actually one of the early articles that I put out, and it is one of the most popular articles that I've written, partly because the descendants there were so great at getting the information out and getting the word out about it. A lot of it has been word of mouth. So there is an article there, if you go and look on our website under the Germantown area.
Okay. I've had a couple people ask where does funding come for this project?
Um, you know, it's just wonderful. People just donate. We just sort of get donations from people who have been impressed with the work that we're doing. And our newsletter, the members keep growing. We thought that after the marker was put up, which was like, the main thing that our main goal was to do the soil collection, the markers, that a lot of the lynching memorial projects closed down at that point. And we leapt into this project, and it's just been so interesting. And people have donated enough. Our expenses aren't high. We have the website, we have the newsletter, and we have Zoom. Um, but it really is helpful. And for things like, our annual meeting is coming up in November. And so it's helping with that. Um, but yeah, it's just individuals.
See here. Are there any good books written on the enslavers and enslaved in the county, and any books on the Black communities?
Um, there are, do I? There is one by George McDaniel that is has been and it's more on Medley, which is where Poolsville is, more in this section of the county, but it's amazing. And he's also written an interesting book called, I think, like Hearth and Home or something, that talks about how people lived, not just like community specific, but almost more, it was also PG County that he did research in. And it talks about how Black folks lived early on during like Reconstruction and in the early years. There's a ton of books. And if you look at any of the articles that we have on the website in those area pages, anytime I've written an article, I list the resources at the bottom. So you'll find a ton of books there, and hopefully you'll find what you're looking for. And if not, please email us.
Okay. Selena and Brian, who both are county employees, mentioned that the county has specifically called out, they changed, there were 3 street names that were changed, that had been named after Confederate generals. So there are steps being taken to change names. I will say, with full respect to the county employees, that sometimes the wheels of government take a long time to turn. So there is definitely interest and desire to see that change, but it takes work to do that. So you can petition your council member to get them changed. How's that for a good answer? All right. So Julianne asks, how much have you explored community names through death certificates? In the early 20th century, I saw burial locations such as Razorblade, which turned out to be in Damascus and probably indicated the cemetery at Friendship United Methodist.
Mm. Um, that isn't something that we've done yet. Like I said, this is an ongoing project. The resources out there really are pretty amazing, and more comes online all the time. Um, and there's more time that we can spend at Montgomery History and the state archives. And for some of the specific resources like that, like there's land records that sometimes have um, wills and things, and because slaves were considered property when sometimes names were included that we haven't gotten into yet, partially because some of them are hard to read on a laptop. So it's easier to do some of that at the state archives, where they give you an enormous computer screen where you can see things better. But yes, no, there's definitely a lot more research that we're going to be able to do and keep finding more information.
Okay. Um, Joan Joan C. Watts Moore. I'm not sure. I assume she's connected with you, but she says that there is a link to submit information on historic Black communities on the Tracing Freedom website. I've also added it to the Q&A in there, so that you can, if you have that, you can use that. In fact, I'm going to.
We would love.
Yes, I'm going to preemptively share my screen so we can show, because I had more questions about seeing the map. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. So again, you can go to MoCoLMP.org, and then right up top is Tracing Freedom. And I'm scrolling really fast here. I apologize, but I was trying to find the the link to share, and I don't actually see it, but you can click on the Join Us button. There's a contact link on there, and also information on how to volunteer. So that is ways to get involved. And then I'm going to also paste in so people can see what it looks like, the Historic Black Community information form. That's where it is. Okay, so going back to Tracing Freedom, if you click on, scrolling down here, how to use the map. This will give a little bit more information. I'm sorry to kind of preempt here, but if you scroll down, I believe there is an option. Yes, so at the very bottom, there is a button that says we invite you to contact us. So that'll get you in touch with the project so that you can contribute and share your personal experiences.
Please do. We would love that.
All right. So we are past our 3 o'clock cutoff. So I'm going to go ahead. I know there's still some open questions. I'm sorry that we're not able to get to everything. But I highly encourage you to check out the map. If you have further questions, you can email the Memorial Project, and someone there, Neil or somebody else, will help you. And as always, we'll have a recording of this posted on our website on Monday. I'm going to try and get it up either later this afternoon or maybe tomorrow, depending on my schedule. But we'll have that up for probably a couple weeks because this is a very popular presentation. Neil, as we close, any final thoughts for us?
Well, like I've been saying, this is an ongoing it's an ongoing project. We've been working on it for 2.5 years so far, and people said, well, and I said, it's not even close to being done. And people said, well, just put stuff up. So this is just an introduction. It's just the start. We're going to keep working on it. We love having volunteers. Anybody new who's interested in helping out, we would love it. And we will keep putting out information. It'll be on the newsletter. It'll be on the website. And if you have questions, please let us know. Because the feedback will be helpful to us in terms of learning how to, what it is that people want to know. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Neil. And thank you, Holly, behind the scenes running PowerPoint. And thanks, everyone, for joining us. I hope you have a great rest of the day.